Happy Friday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines, the final show before the Super Bowl. So we want to get to all of your questions. We have a lot of different parlays and different picks that we cooked up ourselves that we'll be getting to. But again, your guys' questions are the most important thing here. Before we get into that, we are going to go through the NBA slate first, just to get through that, because a lot of trade impact situations that we want to address. Let's take a look back to yesterday's recap with the boys here. Still a profitable day. We've had a very profitable week, 7-5 here. But Jake, 2 bad beats again for you, 2 days in a row. I really feel for you out here.
I know, it's rough. I was just waiting for one more. I mean, Caruso had 4 rebounds in the second half, none in the first half. And there was a couple of boards that were going right to him, and then Drummond just snatched out of the air. So that was rough. I was watching NBA League Pass. Mm-hmm. And then I felt really good at halftime about Andrew Wiggins. He had 10 points, rebounds, and then he went back in the fourth quarter, and then Steph Curry hit 3 threes, and they took out the starters. So yeah. It was rough.
That's just criminal. But overall, solid week for the team for sure. We're going to head into we'll talk about 2 of these trade impacts that probably most people want to talk about here. If you haven't hit that like button, please do that for us. All right, let's talk about Bogdanović here going to the Knicks. Not as big of an impact in the Sims as most people would assume, because his high 3-point percentage is kind of canceled out by some negative things here, Steven.
Yeah, I was surprised by this too. When this trade happened, Derek was in the office. He said, "Oh, that's not good." And I was like, "No, it is. He's a really good player." And then I ran it, and it didn't make a difference. So the reason why is while he is a great 3-point shooter, high percentage shooter, and would add probably 1 full point a game over his replacement, he commits 2.3 turnovers a game this season. For his career, as many turnovers as assists. It's a very high number for a player that isn't a point guard. So Harden and Curry are the only high volume 3-point shooters who commit that many turnovers. That and Karl Anthony Towns, which is one of his problems as well. So he's also not a good rebounder for his size and position. So and he might cut in some minutes of a guy like Josh Hart, who is a great rebounder. So the 1 point he gives you he adds to you based on 3-point percentage is taken away by his turnovers and rebounding and the possession impact. But if he comes to New York and he stops thinking of himself as, Pete Maravich, because he seems to try to take guys off the dribble a lot more than he should, and just sort of spots up and plays more like Klay Thompson, like catch and shoot, and you can get the upside of his shooting without the downside, then I think he could have a positive impact.
I think the Knicks were much more interested in the Alec Burks side of the trade than the Bogdanović. Even though Bogdanović is the bigger name, they originally the trade was just for Burks, who has been shooting really well since he left the Knicks. But also he doesn't have great passing numbers, which doesn't help as well. But the real thing that hurts is the OG Anunoby's defense is now gone, and then you're replacing with Bogdanović when he plays. So that's what's really, I think, hurting the Knicks.
Yeah, scary part for his lack of defense. But, I mean, high 3-point shooting. A different team that really actually needed some high 3-point shooting is the Sixers. They were bottom of the league in 3-point shooting. So adding Buddy Hield to their lineup is really, really big for them, especially for a player like Tyrese Maxey, who probably could benefit from this as well.
Yeah, the Sixers are, I think, 20th in the league in 3-point percentage, bottom third, 36%. Hield is a career 40% shooter, high volume, 7 or 8 a game. So if they want a guy who consistently go 3 for 7, maybe in 4 for 7 some nights, it's perfect fit with Maxey's ability to drive and kick.
Right. And then, I mean, it's hard to tell. So explaining right here, like the rest of the season stats, obviously it technically doesn't look like a huge impact, but relative to having this many games left, it is bigger than people would assume.
Yeah. 82 games times 2.2% is 1.5 wins, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big impact for a non-star.
Right. All right, let's head into the slate of games today. I liked Big Cheesy's thinking here. He said we should, let me find this comment. Yeah, got to make some money in the NBA to get the bankroll up for Sunday. I like where his head's at here. And you might need that with some of our wild parlays we're going to be throwing you today. All right, let's start with the slate here. Hawks going to the Sixers. Now, the Sixers are dogs here in this situation, but we only have the Hawks winning by a point.
Yeah, the Sixers have historically, without Embiid, have played better than expected. But this recent stretch, the last 7 games especially, have been really bad. So I think there is some smart money because the public's heavy on Atlanta and the under, but the line ticked the other way. I think the smart money is that they think Philly will get their act together to a degree. Now, I hope that doesn't mean Paul Reed dominates. So he's had some really notable, huge games. He had a 40-plus point rebound assist game earlier in the year without Embiid. In the playoffs, when Embiid missed a few games, he had some solid 25 and 27 in back-to-back performances. So the public is aware that he has a reputation for stepping up big. And he does double his average in the 16 games without Embiid, but that average is still just 19. And in the under 6-0 in his last 6 games. So he and Mo Bamba are sort of splitting time. And Bamba, according to one local reporter, seemed to be the more active player, quicker, defensively, and the other day had 10 rebounds. So and when Baba did have foul trouble the last 2 games, it didn't translate into Reed having big numbers. So I'm fading Reed here. And you want to probably act now because the number was 22.5 just an hour ago.
Yeah, I think the few games that he had without Embiid are inflating this number a little bit too high. I like that play here as well. Let's move on to Houston going to Toronto. Big value on the under here, just not too Houston doesn't score a lot of points on the road. Toronto doesn't score a lot of points at home. Yeah,
and 234 popped up, so maybe it's going to keep climbing. So Houston averages 5 less on the road, 111. Toronto averages less at home. Toronto allows 10 less at home. Toronto allows 36% three-point shooting at home. Houston shoots only 33% on the road. So there's only one good three-point shooter projected to play in this game. By good, I mean like that 40% range, and that's Gary Trent Jr. And there's only 2 players on the board whose juice for over 1.5 made threes. There's only 2 players, Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. And if you look at Brooks for the last 2 years, he's a lousy three-point shooter. This year he's been pretty good in Houston. Jalen Green is a low percentage shooter as well. So it's just the odds would indicate this is not going to be a high three-point make game, which is why the under is in play.
Big Cheesy asking about Dillon Brooks here that you just mentioned. His line's 13.5. Do we like that at all?
Let me see.
I guess it might. We do have
13.9 points projected, so we would lean over.
Yeah.
I'd say minus 105. Yeah, that's good value.
And when we have an under on a game, but we like a player prop over, that's even more strong value, correct?
Yeah, we only have 108 projected for Houston, and their team total is 116.5. Mm-hmm. So we're underselling Houston and still like the over in Brooks' case.
That's a good spot to be, Big Cheesy. All right, let's move on to Washington going to Boston. Boston's 17-point favorites here in this game. Very large number. Fading Washington because Jordan Poole doesn't know how to score the basketball anymore, it seems.
Yeah, he scored as much as I did last game, and on more shooting. Washington, but the play with a backdoor cover threats. This model has like a massive 25-point favorite. I'm going to take the Washington team total under 109.5 points. Simple math is Boston allows 109 and Washington's a below average offense at this point with Wade Poole struggling. The big statistical advantage that we have for Boston besides shooting percentage is possessions thanks to rebounding. So Washington's just traded Daniel Gafford, who was an 8 rebound guy in 26 minutes. So basically a 12 rebound type player if he was playing starters minutes. Marvin Bagley's not a good rebounder and he's out. And they traded him for Rashawn Holmes, who's not a great rebounder, and he may not even play. So this is resulting in this massive 19-edge rebounding for Boston with very few offensive rebounds by Washington. So we're not expecting a lot of easy shots on putbacks, and we're not expecting a lot of possessions for Washington, which is why we like the under here.
Yeah, I don't think I'll take much convincing to fade Washington and Jordan Poole here in this spot. You had me at first sentence. All right, let's move on to Charlotte going to Milwaukee. Kind of an ugly situation to be in just because of all the trades and Lillard's status here, but someone we can count on probably is Miles Bridges.
Yeah, I think I just think that he's been the numbers are ridiculous. The last 2 games, 45 and 41. So the line has adjusted, but you can get 25.5 probably most places I'd move up to 26.5. The heavy juice on the over. He's been playing a ton of minutes, right around 40 a game, going back his last 12 games, and that's before PJ Washington was traded, who would be basically his backup and another similar size player. He has all the shots he wants. He's had 20-plus field goal attempts in 5 of his last 6 games. He's going to play a ton no matter what happens. The Bucks defense stinks. I mean, they have a good reputation, good individual defensive players, but statistically they're not good. They've allowed 112 points or more in 14 straight games. So Charlotte, even with Charlotte's bad offense, should be up for, over 100. Well, and Bridges is going to get, I think he has a good chance at 30% of his points.
Right. I saw Derek also mentioning the chat here. Jason Tatum, questionable. Wrong game. But in general, Jason Tatum also questionable here. A lot of injuries and weird situations with the trades going on to be mindful of. All right, let's move on to Denver, headed to Sacramento. I saw some Sacramento prop questions in the chat. De'Aaron Fox, though, someone Big Cheesy was mentioning, we like him as well, but we're targeting the rebounds. Yeah,
I like the fact that he's due for a regression to his mean, which is 4. So last year, the over was 52 and 28. This year, it's not as strong. His rebounds down slightly, but it's still 12 and 8 at home with a 4 average. And that's what we're projecting. We're actually projecting only 3.7. But so the line's been moved down because of a 6 and 11 over stretch. But his last 6 games, it still looks like it's ticking back up with a 4 and 2. Low of 3 rebounds in 2 games, high of 5 rebounds. And then the most important thing, I like the motivation that should be here. So they just got humiliated at home by Detroit, who killed them on the boards. So, and then Denver just kind of, I think, easily handled the Lakers by killing the Lakers on the boards. So you got to figure the coaching staff's going to really get on the team about everybody going after the rebounds, not just Sabonis.
A few questions about this game that I want to hit and some games from earlier, but let's head to the model for this game here. Big Cheesy was asking about Keegan Murray. Over 2.5 threes is plus 144. So some good plus money value. Do you think that's worth a sprinkle?
Well, we have 2.2, 2.16, so probably a plus 144. Good value. I'm still struggling with the Barnes, Murray, Malik Monk, Carter quad. It's just like it seems like 3 out of 4 play well every game, but it's really hard to tell. So we have all 4 of these guys right around 13 points a game. And I know that 13 is not going to be accurate for any 4 of them. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 4, 4, 25, 25. And it drives me nuts because I can't ever seem to get a good rhythm on who's going to get what.
Right. Let's go back. B. Mills had a question about the Celtics game. If we could go back to that with Tyus Jones. His PRA is set at 22.5, potentially looking at the under here.
We're just, we like the under at 21.5. They're not expected to make he might have a lot of assist opportunities, and his assist numbers have been decent, but with such low percentage shooting by his teammates, could be tough to get a lot of assist numbers.
All right. That is all the model value we have on the slate tonight. We'll continue to peek at some of these questions in the chat, but we are going to move on to our Super Bowl prop portfolio. We're at the final day here, looking at parlays, of course, answering your guys' questions as well, and just some fun plus money props to throw in there with all of your stuff. So let's start with Jake. He has a nice, simple pick one here that we can start this off with. Looking at opening kickoff, no touchback at plus 235.
Yeah, so if you look at the history in the Super Bowl, 49 of the 57 kickoffs have been returned. Yes, this is an indoor, and yes, they did move the ball from the 30 to the 35-yard line, so some of that you could throw out. But if the ball is in play, a lot of these guys are amped up to try to return and make a name for themselves. So, and then Jake Moody, as Derek said earlier, has a 62% touchback percentage, which is one of the lowest in the leagues. I think it's 7th in the league. And so if they kick off first, if Kansas City, or it would be probably San Francisco, wins the toss and they decline, then they defer, then I think there's a good chance that this could hit. Plus 235, considering the history, I like the value here.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good value at plus 235 there. All right, I'm going to hit you guys with a little parlay here first. This is my first parlay. Let's take a look at this. All right, this is just all about alternate lines here. A little safer parlay around plus 150. We're gonna shave off some of Isaiah Pacheco's yards. Again, as we all know, this is likely to be a big game on the ground. I don't know why they would stop using Isaiah Pacheco. He's been a workhorse through the playoffs. No need for much explanation there. Then we're taking the Chiefs over 20.5 as well. Again, our model has them projected closer to 22, 23, and I like the potential of some overtime here as well. So that always plays into it. But we still are fading Brandon Ayuk. I took his under receptions earlier, took his receiving yards a little higher to go under 79.5 yards here. Again, just hasn't been the target for Purdy in the playoffs. He had 150-yard fluke reception last game, but outside of that, really has been one of the more quiet players on this Niners offense. So that is my first parlay here, a little 3-legger, plus 148. Maybe you can get some better value. This was on DK, so you might be able to get it better on some books. That's where we're starting. My next one will be a little more saucy, but got to start safe here. We're going to move on to Steven's first parlay of the day, and it looks a little familiar.
So I'm oddly competitive for things that don't involve cardiovascular conditioning. And so this one, once Mackenzie had this idea where we all match up against each other for this portfolio, I said, oh, and then Tuesday we first started, I was like, I like your guys' picks more than mine. I had 2 plus money picks. So I figured, okay, if we all go 2-1, I do have 2 plus money picks. Most likely I'll be ahead at that point on those 3 picks. But if you guys are right and hit all 3 of yours, then I will make more than you guys will on your 3-0 individually. It's like, I'm like the mob boss and you have to kick up to me, And so, yeah, I'm not going to say why I like this because you can tune into Tuesdays or Jay could do a better job in this case, but there you go. Check over 15.5, Mahomes over 4.5 rushes, Juwan Jennings over 14.5 receiving yards. Good job, guys.
I have to say we both agree.
Game theory. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the person you're next to.
And I tried doing half units, and I got shot down on that. And then you go with the sneaky back end over here. I like it.
Okay, there is a knife sticking in your back right now. I'm sorry. You meant to pull that sucker out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel flattered. So let's move on here. We're going to Jake's second pick of the day. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, I like this one a lot. Rashee Rice to have the most receiving yards in the Super Bowl, plus 300 here.
Yeah, we have him as number 2 in the model behind Kelsey, who has 76, and I think Rashee Rice is 69, and then was Ayuk at 67. So I think this is just good value play. I could see a lot of screens to Rice here. And if Trey Smith doesn't get called for a holding, he'd have the most receiving yards last game. And that was a 34-yarder that was wiped out by holding. They just like to throw the ball to him a ton. And I think that if Ayuk doesn't have that huge reception, his line's a little lower this week as well. So I think this is pretty good value at plus 300.
Yeah. All right. Jake's second pick. I'm going to move on to my other parlay. Everybody brace yourselves, okay? A little 4-legger here, plus 850. All right, we're going back to the alt yards here. CMC over 75.5 rushing yards. I think that's certainly obtainable for obvious reasons. Again, fading Brandon Ayuk. His longest reception to be under 24.5 yards. Again, I just don't see him being that type of target for Purdy in this game. Then we'll go Patrick Mahomes over 4.5 rushing attempts. Jake talked about this a lot earlier this week. Playoff Mahomes, do or death, die type of situation. I could see this being soaring over here. And then I'm channeling a little bit of Derek here. We're going Harrison Butker over 1.5 total made field goals. Andy Reid does not go for the 4th down conversion very much. Ranked basically last in the league last season, but still pretty far down there on the list this season as well. I, as an Eagles fan, remember the field goal to crush my dreams last Super Bowl. So I'm going to bank on maybe that to happen again. So plus 850. I think that's actually pretty solid value here. Any thoughts on my parlay, guys? You want to try it?
I think it's pretty good value.
I'd love to steal it as well.
Yeah, I might have to steal that.
Okay. All right, let's move on here to Steven's second pick,
Yes.
which
Speaking of stealing,
happens to be my pick as well. So I guess
so a nice young up-and-coming capper who's really made a name for herself, Mackenzie Brooks, put this out on these picks on Tuesday, but it's my brilliance that says to parlay them, which is Brandon Ayuk under 4.5 receptions. That lucky 50-yard play was different. The Chiefs secondary corners especially are strong suit. Jennings over 1.5 receptions at plus money. And of course, the Eli Mitchell getting at least one carry and hitting his average, because McCaffrey might get dinged up or might need a break after a long run. And all Mitchell's got to get is one series.
Yeah. This is Elijah Mitchell definitely is my biggest play of the week. I think I've been vouching for this for days now. So if he doesn't come in big, I'm going to be really upset. Very similar to the Jared Goff half a rushing yard play, but it'd be really hard to go 0-2 on those types of plays, right? At least that's what I'm telling myself.
Impossible.
Yeah. Impossible. All right, Jake's third pick. Another creative play here. Jair Brown, someone we talked about, I think it was last week we were talking about the defensive props here. You'd like him to get the first pick plus 3,500. Talk about value.
Yeah, I'm kind of stealing one of Steven's plays from last week where he was talking about defensive props, and Jair Brown, he was a beast at Penn State. He had 10 interceptions the last 2 years. He's a strong safety, but he'll get plenty of times with plenty of time on the field with a lot of the injuries to San Francisco's defensive backfield. So I think he's a ball hawk, and one ball gets tipped or hangs in the air, and then Jair Brown's will be ready for it. Plus 3,500, I think is pretty good value here.
Yeah,
that is solid value.
It's also like the same line on DraftKings for Karlaftis to get a pick. I think he was at plus 3,700, which didn't make sense because he's a defensive tackle, defensive end, and Jair Brown's a safety. So I thought that was very interesting that the value was really good for him to get that plus 3,500 for the first pick.
Mm-hmm. All right. My third pick here is a cute little parlay, just a little two-legger with an alt spread here. The Chiefs plus 6.5 and Pacheco anytime touchdown. You can get that around plus 130. I made that on Caesars, I think. Could be better value on some other books, but pretty self-explanatory there. Obviously expecting a close game, and Pacheco, again, to be the workhorse he has been this entire time. Now, Steven's final pick, let me find it here. This is actually one he came up with himself. So.
Original. I think some of your strategy with like the ultra conservative plays that combine to get you guys decent plus value, which is Chiefs plus 7, which is minus 344. McCaffrey 70+ rushing yards minus 300, and Pacheco over 53.5 rushing yards minus 265. Parlays to plus 137. I can't imagine those three not all hitting easily.
Yeah, I like these alternative spread parlays for cooking. We're not a big parlay crew in general, but maybe we're going to get lucky. Who knows? All right, I just started a poll of who you think is going to win. So you guys let us know. All right, we're going to look at the recap of the NBA first. Just a few plays today to help you make some coin for Sunday's game to sprinkle it all over here. All right, and then we have our official full portfolios here. We'll start with our picks from earlier. Everyone has 3 player props, 3 novelty props, and then some anytime touchdown action from everyone. And then we have our parlays, our plus money plays. Jake also had a great parlay earlier this week. Pacheco and CMC anytime touchdown for around plus 150, I think, which is awesome value, I think. But these are the plays from the crew. With that said, this is the last show until the Super Bowl. But if you do have any questions, please let us know all weekend. We're here to help you guys out. So good luck with all of your bets. Happy Super Bowl, and we'll see you guys Monday.